Hi, it's Will from StormTheCastle.com, and this is part 2 of my tutorial on how to forge a knife. In part 1, we did all the forging and all the shaping of the knife, and then we annealed it to soften it up so we can work on it. So now we're going to work on it. Take your knife and clean it all up. Clean all the scale off it, get it looking pretty good. I like to start out with the power tools like a grinder or a belt sander. Get it all nice into shape. This is going to take some time. You got to work at this. And then I move on to hand tools. File, emery paper, stuff like that. Continue to work it, get your knife looking good. Don't yet try to polish the blade or to get the blade looking really terrific. Next we want to prepare our handle. So I've located my 4 holes here that I'm going to mount the handle to with brass pins. And always center punch those so the drill stays exactly where you want it. If you don't put this little pin punch here, the drill will float on the knife and it won't be exact. So 2 large holes for the handle, 2 small holes for the bolster. So we go ahead and drill it. 1/8 inch on the handle, 1/16 inch on the bolster. And we use a slow speed and plenty of oil. See, now it's drilled up good. Now I'm starting to prepare my handle. I cut myself 4 rough pieces approximately right and to make up the handle and the bolster. Now I'm transferring those holes from the knife to the wooden pieces. And I like to do the bolster completely first. So I cut those, I rough them up, those rough pieces, drilled them out, and pin them in place with just a piece of wooden dowel. This is only temporary. We're going to be removing these, so you don't want it to be a terrific, nice, snug fit. But this way when I have the bolster, I can go ahead and fit the handle pieces up nice and snug and drill those holes out so I get a good fit, a good match between the bolster and the handle. So that's what I've gone ahead and done. I've already drilled the top. Now I'm passing that drill through the top, through the blade, into the bottom. And once you get those holes drilled, you can go ahead and pin those too. Trim down those pins, and you can see the handle's just square, so next we're going to work on that and get it into shape. I love using a rasp, a wood rasp. I just rasp that handle down and keep working it until it's the handle. Use any tools you want. A belt sander works pretty good at this. And there we go. Now we can focus on the blade. This takes time and a lot of work, but you start polishing up the blade by working through grits of emery paper. Start with 100 grit, and then work 200, 300, 400, all the way to 600 grit to get a nice, fine, glassy look on that blade. And we didn't do this earlier because we were working on it. Once you've got that done, it's time to harden and temper the knife. So crank up the forge, put the knife in the forge, and we're primarily focused on the blade, the cutting end, not so much the handle here. Once it gets up to Curie temperature where it's red-orange hot and a magnet no longer sticks to it, dip it in your oil, and that locks it in, and swirl it around. Now you had noticed earlier that I had a poker in the fire. I put that in the oil to heat the oil up. You want the oil to be warm. So there we go. That is now hardened. But here's the test to see if it's hardened. You run a file along it, and you can hear how it sounds like glass on the blade, and on the handle it sounds a lot different. So you know you've hardened it. You can hear that sound. So now clean that blade up really good. Get all the scale off of it. We're going to temper it, which softens it back up, but we need to see the color so we can temper it correctly. So you're going to clean that blade until it's nice and shiny. Now put the knife. Now all we're focused on here is the blade, the cutting edge, the cutting part of it. Put that knife in near the forge like this, near the fire, with the spine facing the fire. You don't put it in the forge fire. We're looking to do something like this, where the cutting edge is a wheat color and the back edge is a plum color. What that does is it softens the back up more than the edge. So you can maintain a nice sharp edge on the blade, but the back is soft enough so it has some give to it. And you can see mine, There's a little bit plum colored on the tip too, so I over soften this one a little bit, but it'll be okay. So move it around however you need to. Don't put it too close to the fire. And then once it gets to the right color temperature, dip it in the oil and lock it in. And that's it. This knife is hardened and tempered. We can finish it off. So clean it up. Do whatever you got to do to clean it up. Repolish it with your emery paper if need be. And we'll mount the handle and finish this thing. I cut myself brass pins a little bit longer than the wooden dowels I took out. So rough up the inside edges of the handle blade, of all the handle parts, so we can glue it. We're going to glue this handle on. A two-part Gorilla Glue is terrific. Two-part epoxy, 5 minutes. Setting time is great. You can use 20 minutes. If you're uncomfortable with this process, use 20-minute Gorilla epoxy. Mix it up nicely. Apply it to all the parts of your handle. Nice thick but even coat. Assemble it all together onto your knife. Now you see my knife handle, the wooden handle, is actually a little bit bigger than the tang of this knife. So I'm going to put in an extra piece of wood. I'll show you that. And pin it. All 4 pins. You should pre-test those pins before you get to this point. And if they're too snug, you can't get them to fit well, you can sand them a little bit. So pin all of that down. And here's my extra piece of wood that I put in there. While the glue, of course, immediately while the glue is still nice and wet. And we will trim that down later. So that way there's no space in that handle. And now clamp it all down and try not to clamp on the pins. Then let it set overnight, however it's recommended. Now the pins, of course, we made a little bit big. You can file those down so they're nice and flush. And at this point you can finish any work on the handle that you want to finish, with a file or sandpaper. And you can sand, use emery paper on those pins to get a nice finish on them. And that's that. Do any final work on the blade if you want. And now it's time to polish the handle. I like to use a nice thick coat of tung oil, multiple coats of tung oil. You rub that on, let it dry, scuff it up a little bit, rub some more on. So, there you go. Let's sharpen that blade. Your knife is ready. Lots more projects on my website, stormthecastle.com, and here on my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.